They cut me out with a voicemail, so I quietly removed the one thing they never thought I'd take: my name. And with it, the foundation of their empire. The message came at 7:42 p.m. on a Thursday. No greeting, no lid, and just my father's voice, measured and clipped like a business memo. Don't bother coming to the family reunion. We're cutting ties. That was it. 18 words. 18 syllables, if you count the pause before he hung. UPI replayed it once. Not because I didn't believe it, but because, for some reason, I expected to feel something bigger. A spike of rage. A punch in the chest. Something, but all I felt was stillness. Like the part of me that had been quietly bracing for this had finally heard what it always knew. My name is Harper Lane. I'm the youngest of two. My father, Warren Lane, built Lane Auto from the ground up, first as a mechanic, then as a franchise owner, and later as a regional chain operator. My older brother Rhett is the heir he always wanted: charismatic, reckless, and untouchable. And me, I was the one who kept the lights on. Quietly, efficiently, invisibly. I didn't call back that night. I didn't ask why. I didn't even forward the voicemail to my mother, Lynette, who historically stayed out of business matters when they became inconvenient. I just texted him 2 words: understood. Then I opened my laptop, signed into the loan portal I hadn't touched in months, and did what I knew none of them expected me to do. I removed my name. Not out of anger, not out of spite, but out of clarity. 2 years earlier, when the family business needed to secure a $2.5 million expansion loan, the bank asked for a secondary applicant with impeccable credit. Rhett had debt. Warren had leverage. I had clean numbers and a Harvard MBA. They didn't beg me to sign. They simply handed me the papers, assumed I would, and I did because, back then, I still thought loyalty earned belonging. But now, sitting alone at my kitchen table, the voicemail playing faintly in the background, I realized something else entirely. They hadn't cut me off. They'd simply confirmed what they'd been quietly doing for years, and this time, I was ready to finish the sentence for them. Warren Lane didn't just build Lane Auto, he engineered it. Brick by brick, rule by rule. With no room for softness. The garage came first. The family came second, sometimes third. He had a saying. One he liked to repeat in front of employees and even more in front of us. We don't hire outsiders. We raise replacements, and that's what Rhett and I were. Potential successors, at least in theory. Rhett was 3 years older, louder, bolder, always walking just slightly out of reach of responsibility. But he had the charm Warren respected, a swagger my father recognized in himself. So Rhett got the praise, the second chances, the leeway. I got the clipboard. By 12, I was logging tire shipments into QuickBooks. By 16, I was managing payroll at the 3rd location during spring break. I didn't ask. I was told, no thank yous, no questions, just the unspoken expectation that I'd be wherever the business needed me, available, obedient, tireless. My mother, Lynette, wasn't cruel. She simply disappeared inside her role, hosting dinner, folding invoices into envelopes, smiling through meetings, then pulling me aside to remind me, your father's building something for us. Be grateful, sweetheart. So I was, or I tried to be. I studied hard, got my MBA, turned down a corporate logistics offer in Chicago because Warren said, family before ambition. He needed someone to help with the regional expansion. Rhett was focusing on vision. I focused on everything else. When the opportunity came to secure funding for a new headquarters, one negotiated the lease, compared rates across 6 banks, landed a deal with favorable terms and a 3-year interest lock. But the bank wanted a second signer. Rhett couldn't. His credit was trashed. Warren didn't want to jeopardize personal assets, so they turned to me. No big speech, no dinner, just the papers on the table and a pen already uncapped. I hesitated maybe for half a second. Then I signed, because somewhere inside, I still believed that if I showed I was loyal enough, indispensable enough, they'd finally see me. Not as the backup plan, but as part of the plan, of course. They never said thank you. They just assumed it was my job. That was 2 years ago. I thought I was investing in a future we'd share. I didn't know then I was just making myself useful enough to be invisible, and if you're quiet long enough, you start to believe that invisibility is a kind of love. It's not, it's just silence. Mistaken for peace. The first crack didn't sound like breaking. It sounded like laughter. Rhett's laughter. To be exact. We were in a quarterly budget meeting, just the 3 of us, me, Rhett, and Warren. I had flagged a vendor invoice $12,000 duplicated over 3 months. A clear error, or at least, I thought so. That's from a friend of mine, Rhett said, waving it off like it was lint on his collar. Let it slide. He gives us good rates elsewhere. I looked at my father, expecting something, a raised brow, a single word of scrutiny. But Warren didn't flinch. He just reached for his coffee and said, "Focus on bigger things, Harper. Stop acting like an outsider." That word didn't just sting. It settled somewhere under my skin. Outsider. I wasn't a recent hire. I had overseen logistics for Foresight expansions, renegotiated our fleet lease at half the original cost, kept payroll balanced through 2 supply chain disruptions. And yet, when I questioned anything that didn't involve spreadsheets or silent compliance, I became foreign. After that meeting, things changed. Subtly at first, my access to our backend systems began to narrow. I couldn't log into vendor platforms. The financial dashboard redirected me to a read-only page. The company credit card tied to my name expired. It was never replaced. Every time I asked, I got the same answer: we're restructuring, or temporary system changes. Or worse, don't worry about it. And yet, I noticed Rhett had a new standing desk. A company-paid trip to Vegas labeled as a leadership summit. An office chair that costs more than my first used car. Something shifted inside me. Not anger, not yet, but a quiet alertness. The kind that comes when your instincts whisper, they are preparing a door for you, and it only opens one way. The next morning, I sat at my kitchen table, sipping cold coffee and staring at my muted laptop screen. Outside, traffic whispered through wet streets. Inside, the silence felt heavier than usual. That voicemail, still saved but unopened again, no longer felt like a rupture. It felt like punctuation. A period, full stop. I opened a blank folder on my desktop and named it Shadow Ledger. I didn't know exactly what I was building, just that I needed to hold on to the truth while it was still in my hands. It started with internal spending reports, vendor contracts I had reviewed but never signed, meeting notes, a cloud folder full of receipts that didn't match line items in the general ledger. Then, slowly, the dots began to connect. Emails from Rhett to clients signed with my name, fleet repairs triple billed, consulting fees to firms with no physical address, marketing expenses labeled as testing with no tied campaigns. Everything I had been cut out from was, piece by piece, adding up to something bigger than carelessness. It was orchestration. That evening, I reached out to someone I hadn't spoken to in years, Danielle Keller. We were friends in law school until she left corporate practice to help her sister escape a nasty real estate dispute with her ex-husband. The story made headlines briefly. Danielle's strategy was brilliant, surgical, tactical, quietly devastating. I sent her a message. "Danielle, can I buy you a coffee this week? I need to ask about something, delicate." We met 2 days later at a corner cafe near the courthouse. She arrived early, as always, dark blazer, no makeup, reading a legal brief with her coffee half drunk. She looked up as I approached. "Harper Lane," she said, standing to hug me. "What kind of storm are we preparing for?" "The kind that comes slow," I replied. And then all at once, over lattes, I walked her through enough of the situation to paint the outlines. The co-signed loan, the financial exclusions, the shifting access. I didn't tell her everything, not yet, just enough to ask one question. If a co-signer wants to remove their name from a business loan, what happens? Her pause was telling. Depends. If you're not a guarantor and you weren't involved in recent misuse, the loan can be reevaluated quietly, legally. You'd need documentation, but it's possible. "I have documentation," I said. She raised an eyebrow. "How much?" I pulled out a USB drive. "Enough to start." She glanced at it, then back at me. "You're not asking for revenge?" "No, just the truth. In writing." That week, I spent every night organizing. I scanned old documents, compared invoice patterns, flagged duplicate vendor payments, created a timeline, labeled emails, cataloged every decision I'd made, every legitimate one, and the decisions they'd forged under my name. Danielle reviewed it all with surgical patience. When she reached the co-signed loan agreement, she stopped. "You're not listed as a guarantor." "Meaning what?" "Meaning they used your name to secure it, but you're not legally bound if you withdraw before restructuring. And if I do?" She folded her hands and said something I will never forget. "You don't need to confront them. Don't warn. Don't scream. Just move the brick holding up their wall and let it fall. That night, I renamed the folder from Shadow Ledger to Redemption Plan. Inside, I added a new document. The withdrawal letter. Weeks passed. I watched quietly as Lane Autoer rolled into its spring quarter, oblivious. Rhett made a show of launching a new marketing initiative with a ribbon-cutting ceremony. Warren praised him in a press release. Meanwhile, the business was bleeding. I knew because I finally received a notification from my credit report. Lane Holdings, Deferred Payment Review. Lane Holdings, a shell company that my father used to hold real estate, dormantor, so I'd thought. Curious, I followed the trail. And there it was. The loan I had co-signed. 3 months. Delinquent. My name is still on the paperwork. My credit is still the justification for deferred penalties. My silence still permitted the permission they assumed would continue. It was time Danielle and I met again, this time not in a cafe but in her office. We finalized the paperwork. Attached evidence. Prepared the letter. Quiet, legal, absolute. I logged into the loan portal. The screen flickered once, then unlocked. Full access. My administrative credentials still worked. Copplicant status, active modification options, available. I clicked remove. Then I uploaded the signed withdrawal letter. I typed in my PIN. Submit. No alarms, no emails, just a gray line of text at the bottom. Update received. Processing pending compliance review. It was done. Then came the risk control. I emailed Keith Heron, the bank's loan manager, a man I had negotiated with during the expansion phase. I attached a summary of financial discrepancies, vendor fraud, altered signatures, evidence of exclusion, professional, clear, neutral, within the hour. The bank froze the operating account tied to Lane Holdings, triggered an internal loan review. No call to my father, no memo to Rhett, just a pause, a blinking cursor in their system, where once there had been blind trust. And while they scrambled, I moved. I contacted Sabrina Kim, my accountant. Trusted, sharp, unshakable. We ran simulations, reviewed exposure, calculated risk. Her verdict: no liability, no credit damage, no legal obligation to notify them. The trust I'd moved my savings into last month was protected. That night, I lit a candle, left my phone on silent, and for the first time in years, I slept. The next morning, there were already 32 missed calls. By mid-afternoon, 70-8. My mother, my father. Rhett, a number I didn't recognize until I heard the voicemail. Gordon Maddox, the company accountant. His voice was thin and frayed, a sound I had never heard from him in over a decade of corporate drills and bottom-line calls. Harper, call me now. This is serious. The loan's collapsing. The bank pulled support. We're at risk of default. You need to fix this. Do you hear me? You have to fix this. I listened to it twice. Not because I didn't understand, but because it sounded like justice. And justice, when it finally arrives, doesn't scream, it echoes. I made myself breakfast, took a walk, bought new notepads and a glass carafe for the loft. Then I listened to Rhett's message. What the hell did you do? Followed by another. You're overreacting. We could have handled this internally. But the word "we" no longer landed. There hadn't been a "we" in a long time. By evening, my mother left a voicemail. Not angry, just trembling. Sweetheart, what's happening? Your father says the bank froze everything that they might recall the loan. Did you sign something? I did, but I didn't explain. Instead, I called her. Let the line ring twice. I removed my name. That's all. Her breath caught. But ... You can't just do that. I can. And I did. She paused. Harper, this affects all of us. No, I said. You made sure it didn't. Then I hung up. Not in anger, in completion. The meeting was 3 days later. They picked Leona's, the restaurant we used to go to for birthdays. Brick walls, too many ceiling fans. The private room near the fireplace where we'd once blown out candles and clinked glasses of ginger ale. No cake this time. Just my parents, stiff and formal. Rhett slouched, scrolling his phone. An empty chair waited for me, as if they still believed I could be summoned. I arrived 15 minutes late. Wore gray slacks and a neutral blouse. Danielle once told me, power doesn't shout. It arrives without apology. Rhett stood. Thanks for coming. I didn't come for you, I said, taking the chair. Let's not waste each other's time. Warren leaned forward, eyes locked on mine. You made your point. Loud and clear. No, I said. The bank made my point. I just stopped protecting your lie. His jaw tightened. Lynette shifted uncomfortably. "We're trying to hold this together," he said. "You think you're punishing us, Harper, but you're punishing the legacy your grandfather built." I looked at him steadily. "Grandpa built a garage. You turned it into a dictatorship," Rhett scoffed. "Oh, come on. We gave you everything. You gave me a job," I said. Not a voice. The silence afterward was warm. Like a room that had finally stopped pretending to be something it wasn't. Then my mother spoke. Quietly and tentatively. "What do you want, Harper?" That was the question, not revenge. I had already taken that. What I wanted now was clarity. I reached into my bag and pulled out an envelope. Sealed, labeled, "This is a signed affidavit confirming I've permanently withdrawn from the company loan, the board, and all business operations. You will never use my name again." Warren opened his mouth, but I raised a hand. "I'm not finished." I took a breath. "I'm also submitting an anonymous tip to the state auditor. Funds are missing. Vendors unpaid. Payroll inconsistencies." I slid the envelope forward. "It's your mess now, fully. Legally." Rhett's face flushed. "You're destroying us, over ego." "I'm not destroying anything," I said, standing. "I'm just removing the illusion that I was ever part of it." I turned to go. Then, for the first time in my life, my father said the one word I never expected to hear. "Harper, please." I paused, not out of hesitation. Out of satisfaction. "You left a voicemail telling me we were done," I said. "I'm just agreeing with you." Formally, then I left. The story made it into the papers. Not the big ones. Just a quiet piece in a local business digest. Lane Autoer faces financial turmoil, amid internal disputes. I didn't leak it, but I knew who did. Danielle called 2 days later. Her voice was half smiling. When people lose power, they look for someone to blame. They just didn't expect that person to have already walked away. After that, the voicemails turned sharp. From my father: "You ungrateful child. We built that business for you. You're ruining your future." From Rhett: "You think you're clever. You'll need us someday." From Gordon: "Do you even understand what this means? You've destroyed their legacy." But here's the thing no one said out loud. They destroyed it long before I pulled out. They destroyed it when they used my name but denied me a seat at the table. When they decided I was a threat, not a daughter. When they made me invisible. Now the loan was caving in. The accounts are frozen. The vendor contracts are unraveling. And me, untouched. No legal blowback. No financial damage. My credit is intact. My savings are secure. I forwarded the last voicemail to Danielle. Then I deleted the rest. I turned my phone off silent. And for the first time in years, it stayed quiet. No crisis. No requests. No fires that only I could put out. Just peace. I moved into a loft on the edge of downtown Portland. It wasn't extravagant. Just sunlight, clean walls, a wide wooden desk, and a kitchen I could finally make mine. The windows overlooked a bookstore and a bakery that opened at 6 a.m. every day, sharp. I started waking up with the smell of cinnamon and espresso drifting through the air. For the first time in years. My calendar wasn't someone else's to fill. No Monday morning crisis calls. No late-night budget emergencies. No one is asking for my help, my signature, or my silence. It was strange at first, that kind of emptiness. But it wasn't hollow. It was space, and I filled it. I began consulting quietly. Mostly women-led startups. Mostly small. Mostly overlooked. The kind of operations I used to study in business school. Casework. The kind that never got banked on because they didn't wear power like a suit. They didn't need suits. They needed a strategy, safety, sustainability, and they trusted me because I'd walked through fire without burning. Danielle helped me set up the legal arm. Sabrina, my accountant, handled the financial structures. I named the firm Visible Strategies. A private joke, a public truth. Not because I needed to prove anything, but because I finally knew what it felt like to build something that didn't erase me in the process. 3 months after I walked away, an envelope arrived, no return address. Just a tracking barcode and the bank's logo printed faintly in the upper right corner. Inside was a single sheet of paper. This letter confirms that the commercial loan associated with Harper Lane has been formally withdrawn and restructured. No further obligation remains. No action required. No, thank you. No apology. No spin. Just a line drawn. In ink. In law. In truth. I placed the letter in a folder marked complete and slid it into the back of a cabinet. Then I lit a candle near the window. The city buzzed softly outside trolleys, dogs barking, laughter on sidewalks. No one knew what that envelope meant to me, but I did. It meant I was free. That night, I poured a glass of wine and opened a new client file at the top. I typed one line: "You're not difficult, you're just finally visible." Then, I began to write, and I didn't stop.